My name is Christopher, and I've always been a little odd, but tonight I'm going to talk about how I became professionally strange. It starts with my family. I get my sense of humor from my parents directly, and while they and my siblings never really understood my hobbies, they always supported anything I ever wanted to do. I was born in Minot, North Dakota, moved down to Southern California, and at 9 we moved to Southern Pennsylvania. It may come as a surprise, but I was not a popular kid in Southern Pennsylvania. My mom likes to say that I had trouble getting along with the other kids because I was smarter than them, and they had trouble getting along with me because I always told them. So I escaped into books. Mysteries of the Unsolved, ghost stories, fantasy fiction, Dungeons and Dragons, and the occult were the things that I was reading as a kid. And that's where I found the place to express my creativity. After high school, I got a degree at YTI, and I was working 2 jobs to get into the tech field. So I needed a hobby to let me unwind, and I picked up poi. This is me on Ocean City on the beach. Not sure it was legal, but I'm sure it's been long enough that I'm okay now. And I started doing shows around Southern Pennsylvania, but I was mostly just doing it for myself. Then I moved up to Rhode Island, and I joined a small circus troupe called Lub Dub. And I picked up a whole bunch of new skills, juggling, acrobatics, partner acrobatics, but mostly I picked up a love of creating unique shows. That's me on this side there. I was a wild child of Borneo in that show. After that, I moved out to California, and I picked up magic, and I started performing on the streets for tips, busking. And nothing will hone your skills faster than busking, because if you're not good enough, the audience will simply leave, and then you make no money. While I was doing that, I was also performing fire shows for a local belly dancing troupe at the Ren Fair. And while I was doing that, I met my now partner, Crystal, and we ended up forming a troupe called Of the Fireflies, which is another small circus troupe. We did fire shows as well. But it's very difficult to make a living in Fresno as a performer because there's an oversaturated market and a lot of people who are willing to work for nothing. While we were working on building our reputation there, I got contacted by this company, Illusionists, the 3rd largest magic company in the world, and they asked if I would like to answer some of their customer service emails. And I said yes, and what started as a couple-hour-a-day job turned into full-time, and now I am their customer support department. At that time, I was also developing more skills like hypnosis, suggestion, storytelling. I got into bizarre magic, and I designed my very first logo. Now, this kind of internally told me that I could have a creative, expressive career. I could make things that actually looked good. And that was very new for me because I'm not a visual person generally. Around that time, I also did something that was another internal signal, and I got my fingers tattooed. And to me, this was internally saying I would never work another corporate job. I would work in entertainment from here on out. Amusingly, it didn't actually have much of an effect on getting hired anyway. Right around that time, I wrote, produced, and performed my very first show, Witch Doctor, for the Fresno Rogue Festival. It's a fringe festival. I was up against 2 other well-known magicians in the time. I sold out half my shows, and they struggled to put butts in seats. And I attribute that to it being something that's very unique and different and unusual compared to their classic magic, which everybody was already familiar with. I started attending conventions, specifically this one, the East Coast Spirit Sessions in Myrtle Beach, which is a convention for people like me, bizarre magicians, storytellers, and seance artists. And there I met some of my oldest, I call them magic friends, who are still supporting my career and helping my creativity to this day. When we moved back out to Pennsylvania, we had trouble getting gigs, so we took them wherever they would come. We did a bunch of steampunk fairs. I did a talk at Drexel University. We did the Always Lounge in New Orleans, which was really fun. I did seances at the Morris Arboretum, and we did Tell Us 360 over in Lancaster. Basically, anybody who would take us, we would do it. One of the people I met at East Coast Spirit Sessions was Danny Greenwolf, who runs the Midsummer Fantasy Renaissance Fair up in Connecticut. This has become a staple gig for me and my partner. We perform it every year, and it has become a place where we can hone our material and test out new things, because if we bomb, it's far enough away that it won't affect our career here. Another result of going to the spirit sessions and meeting those people is people encouraged me to write down my thoughts on how I perform, and I wrote this book, which is on psychological techniques in seance, and that allowed me to establish myself internationally as an expert on the subject. So now I have people consulting with me from all over the world. This might seem like a non sequitur, but a couple years ago, I got really into weightlifting. And weightlifting and performance actually have a lot in common. The two main things being discipline to keep doing it, and the necessity of being consistently in uncomfortable places, mentally and physically. As we build our career in York, 3 things were really instrumental for us. The first for me being the Dark Parlor, which is a place where I've gotten to do some of my best gigs in York. I have another run coming up in March. The Strangelove Vaudeville is coming up on Friday, where me and my partner bring in amazing performers from all over the country. You should get your tickets. And then obviously York Fringe. We've done both those here too. A lot of people ask me, where did you learn all this weird stuff? Oh, right there. That's just the books I've read. There's a 2 read pile just as big on the opposite perspective of this photo. I mentioned getting international recognition from the book. That led to lectures. This is the flyer for my very first lecture where I taught other performers how to use suggestion effectively in their performances. And now that has turned into a full 4-hour workshop, which I pitch to other conventions and clubs around the country. So there's a running joke in the magic industry that you start out as a magician, and if you don't do great at that, you become a mind reader or a hypnotist, and if you're not great at that, you become a public speaker. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of public speaking wisdom. No matter what you do, even if nobody understands it, express yourself. Be yourself and be creative. As long as you stay true to yourself, you will be able to find your audience. Thank you.